All right, Max.
Yeah.
Let's just put a big crap bow on this big crap football season. How about that? College football we're talking about. High school's great.
All right.
College football. Bowl games are now over. College football in the state of Texas is now over. And it was, I want to do some research, but I would be willing to bet that this was, I know that this is the first time since 1999 that Texas, the state of Texas, does not have a 10-win team in it. Like, not any of them. First time since 1999 that's happened. I need to do a little bit more research. I'll get back to you on whether or not that was, whether or not this is actually the worst empirically. But it feels like the worst, right?
Sure.
Feels like it was just boring and touchdown Abilene Wiley.
It was over halfway into it.
It was just terrible.
It was pretty much over.
I mean, once
A&M lost.
Once A&M lost, then it's like, okay, well, what's even the point? And once Baylor lost, because Baylor, remember, they went in that tailspin. Both A&M and Baylor went in a tailspin.
Right.
So there were
Baylor's was much more pronounced.
Correct. There were 6 bowl games. It started off with the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl.
Sure.
UTSA, probably the best story to come out of 2016.
And they even honestly made this more of a game than
they
I thought they would.
sure did. They end up losing 23-20. That's going to be a theme. End up losing 23-20 basically because they outgained them. They outgained them by a ton, but the problem was they just couldn't stop the run.
Right.
And a key interception, thrown by Dalton Sturm, who I thought played pretty well. Overall played pretty well.
Sure.
But overall, this was the name of this game was that they couldn't stop the running game when they needed to, and they made it a game late. They scored with 25 seconds left, but couldn't get the onside kick, and that was the end of the ball game. The star of this game was probably the Dalton Sturm. I thought he was pretty good. Although Jarvion Williams had 125 yards, he was pretty salty himself. But overall, look, UTSA finishes 6-7. That should not. Losing the bowl game, especially when New Mexico's playing basically a home game,
right?
That should not take away from what was, I think, a remarkable season for Frank Wilson and company.
Future's looking bright in UTSA.
Great. That same day, we were at state championship games when Houston, without a head coach, pretty much. Well, no, actually, was he coaching that game?
Yes.
Boy, an inauspicious start there
like
for
2 days before or something
for the major Applewhite era, as San Diego State just crushes Houston. And this is a game that Greg Ward Jr. would like to just go away forever.
We're just going to pretend that didn't happen, right?
25 of 34, which you'd go, okay, 25 of 34, that's actually a very Greg Ward Jr. type game.
Right.
229 yards, also a very Greg Ward Jr. type game. 4 interceptions, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay? That means
I remember at one point, you and I were watching it off to the side, and I said, you said, have you seen what's going on? I said, I saw he threw 2 interceptions. You go, nope, 4 now.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
4. So think about that. So he threw 9 passes that were not caught by Houston receivers. 5 of them hit the ground. 4 of them were caught by San Diego State players. He also didn't run the ball. They basically shut down the running game. San Diego State did. Offensively, or defensively rather, I thought that Houston played pretty well. They held them to just 255 yards of total offense, but they couldn't get a stop on third down, and the bottom line of it was that there just wasn't a ton. They gave up an interception return, which was so critical. They were leading at halftime, 10-6, but they couldn't put it together. And with all the changes going on, you would expect a little bit of a letdown, but chaotic. that was just a fart in the wind way to end it. The Zaxby's Heart of Dallas Bowl went down between Army and North Texas, a rematch of a previous game.
Again, a little surprised at how North Texas played here on a positive note.
It was a weird game too because they fall behind pretty big early.
Yeah.
And it was like I was looking at this, I'm like, all right, well, here comes they're gonna get smoked like 48-7.
Yeah.
They make a big comeback, end up tying the game with the last kick of the game, force overtime. Overtime doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of positives to draw from it. I thought Jeffrey Wilson had a nice game, 81 yards. I thought the defense, look, this is what Army does. They put up 480 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
And North Texas has been a bad rushing defense all year long. This was easy to see coming.
Despite all the improvements they made that impressed us, that's obviously the weakness.
But that's basically the bottom line of it. They ran the ball 74 times.
Yeah.
Look, That's what happens. And again, for North Texas, they finished the year with the very odd 5-8 record.
Right.
But, again, I think this is a step in the right direction, and if you're a North Texas fan, you view this as a positive development that they got an extra month of practice, and they got to play, and they played a hot team in Army.
Yeah.
They played them tough.
Right.
They played them tough, and they didn't quit. And so I think there's a lot of positives to draw from it. The only team to win a bowl game, believe it or not,
This is the weirdest part, right?
the Baylor Bears.
And they've romped.
Baylor comes out and just throttles Boise State.
Yeah, man.
31-12, and it really wasn't that close.
No.
I mean, basically, Boise State scored pretty much a garbage time touchdown to make this relatively okay. But boy, what a way for Jim Grubb to go out. I mean, Zach Smith looked like he could be the quarterback of the future. 28-39, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. You can handle that.
Right.
Now the offense is going to get shapen in a different way because of the Matt Rule, regime. But, they get a great game from Terrence Williams. He runs for 103 yards. Jermichael Hasty got in on the act. And KD Cannon, in what was his last college game, spoiler hint to the next segment, 14 catches, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, look, if you're a Baylor fan, this since basically October 15th,
right?
I don't have their schedule in front of me. Let's call it October 15th. This season has been horrifying.
Yeah.
A really positive note to end it on. In a weird way.
Yeah.
Weird way that I did not see coming. So that was the Cactus Bowl, which was played, by the way. Do you see where that was played? That's played at Chase Field.
Yeah, Chase Field, the Diamondbacks Stadium. Yeah.
I will never get used to football being played at baseball stadiums.
The only novelty one that seems kind of interesting is the Pinstripe Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Lots of different sports get played at Yankee Stadium. It's a cool theme.
My dad went to Illinois, and Illinois a couple of years ago played Northwestern at Wrigley, and he just came away from it being like, that's just weird. It was it was neat, and I'm glad I went, but it was weird. I'll never get used to it. The Advocare V100 Texas Bowl. First of all, our friend Rashad Paul got his Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year award beforehand. Rashad, glad you got it. But he did not watch his future team
do well.
No. Boy, look, there's a couple things. First of all, Kansas State wins 33-28 over Texas A&M. There's a couple things to play with. First of all, Bill Snyder's just a magician, and Jesse Ertz was incredible in this game, even though the numbers are not fascinating. He was just so methodical and just really fun to watch in this game. And A&M just didn't have a stop for them defensively. They would, let me see if I can find the time of possession. Where are the time of possession? Kansas State had the ball 32 minutes, 49 seconds. They dominated time of possession. Yeah. The other part of this for me is that, boy, this was the most Trevor Knight game of Trevor Knight's career.
He finally did the Trevor Knight thing for you.
Where he alternated between looking fantastic and put up great numbers, 30 of 48, 310 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Ran for 20 yards on 8 carries, and a couple of those were really nice ones. He ended up getting sacked a couple times, which went against his rushing average. But this was the vintage Trevor Knight game. If you ever want to know what Trevor Knight's college career was like, just go watch this game.
Right.
Because there were moments where you go, this guy's awesome. He throws an incredible touchdown pass, couple incredible touchdown passes to Josh Reynolds.
Right.
I mean, he threw another one to Ricky Seals-Jones. He looked great. He was rolling out of the pocket, making extended plays, stuff like that. And then there were throws that he missed by 30 feet.
Right.
And you start going, which are you? He was so Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in this game, and that's the defining characteristic of the 2016 Texas A&M Aggies. Is Trevor Knight, when he was good, they were good, and when he wasn't, they just didn't have the weapons to win. So Texas A&M finishes the year 8-5, and finally, the last college game of 2016, the Liberty Bowl. Georgia beats TCU 31-23, and another Kenny Hill, same thing, right?
And now Mr. Sawyer is transferring.
Foster Sawyer is transferring, but they he goes 18 of 27, 246 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but he just made baffling throws. It was a weird game. He did run a fair amount, and they let him loose. But, the bottom line is Nick Chubb ran for 142 yards and a touchdown. And then what's this other? Sonny Michael, the other running back for Georgia. I mean, they couldn't stop the run. And it was just, I don't know, TCU's, I tweeted this earlier, they finished 6-7, and I'm just not sure if they were a good team. Were they? At times they looked great. And then at other times, you're like, all right, well, how do they ever win a game? And I don't know. They were so.
Although I will say, like the
mystical.
weird, disappointing seasons for TCU almost always seem to be followed by like insane seasons.
Sure.
So
So maybe Kenny
I
Hill.
don't see the writing on the wall with that. I don't know who the quarterback, if Kenny Hill's the guy going forward or how things change.
Got to be right.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. We'll have a lot of time to break down the TCU quarterback battle, but that is bowl season, and thank God it's over. Texas goes 1-5, and that is horrifying.
Everything is the worst.